I named him.
I
don't know. You could have been named something else. Your grandmother really fought me on that one.
What the fuck is going on here again?
Video just not working.
Ready?
No.
Always. And we have, what time's that conference call? Okay.
You know what? I'm thinking we do it in my truck.
In your truck?
We're going to be on speakerphone. I don't just sit in the truck and go.
Tom's got an office for us back there.
I know, but I don't want to make a lot of noise.
Hey, well, you shut the door. It's not going to make that much noise.
All right, then we'll do it in the office.
I'd rather have relaxed than sitting in a truck.
I'm relaxed in my truck.
Sleep in your truck. I do need his breakdown of his list, though.
I know, that's what we're going to talk
That's
about.
important.
I don't think this is going to be a long conversation.
Why the
No.
fuck is this?
It's going to change. It's going to
No,
change
we're
our price,
good.
though.
It just looks different. Yeah, you're good.
It's going to change our price, though.
I know, and I put that in the email.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably going to add 50 grand. Yeah.
See what I mean? That's why we do it. Shut everybody up real quick.
It's a new Marvel movie.
Look at this.
You did this whole thing.
I worked with the developer.
Very impressive.
Yeah, you like that?
Impressive.
We have an FDBI one. It just gives you the finger.
That's good. All right, we good?
We're good. Yeah.
Should we?
Hey guys,
The people, there's a
So-
left on us.
I want to give you guys a little bit of background of where this company came from. This is Sal and Steve Cuccinati. Steve's been in business for 40 years, general contracting. And when Justin brought them into the office for a lunch and learn here, I don't know, probably 4 years ago or something. And I was in a situation shortly after that where I had a stucco remediation job, a quote that was like 60 grand and about to blow up the deal. And I remembered these guys were in here talking about stucco as one of the things that they do. Reached out. We ended up getting the thing resolved for 17 grand. The deal closed. I got my money. Everybody was happy. So from there, I was just like, there's a huge need for this in the market because there's stucco remediation companies, and that's all they do, right? But they explode their quotes. You know, they don't take common sense approach. And I really appreciated like the holistic view that these guys take and not killing people over price. You know, we're not in it to kill people over price. We're in it to get your deals closed, and that's kind of where this starts. So Sal is the majority owner in the company, and he's been working with Steve for what, 8 years? I guess I'll let you guys take it away.
Of this company, though.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
company.
well,
There's-
we've been
We
together.
have two
for about
separate
8 years.
companies.
And
Right.
just so brief about number one today and kind of our history. We're not here to sell anything new. We are here solely to be a resource. Kind of like what Tom was talking about. At the end of the day, I mean, Sean and I have talked. I know we've done other deals with people in the office before where it's, look, we're not going to get every job you guys send us, and that's okay. We completely understand that. Some of this is just for negotiation power, and we get it, and we understand the game. And for us, the best thing we can do is be realistic. We're not going to put ourselves in a position where we're not protected, so we'll explain that to you from a pricing standpoint. But why we kind of can handle things that way, and I'll let my father take, because he's the one that really got into this. The general contracting mind, which is where we kind of come from, gives us more of a holistic view of properties and problems versus just being an exterior contractor, where you kind of only think one way. Look, there are times where you'll see a project where we'll go, look, this is the only way we can do it. You got to tear everything off. You got to tear this wall off, and this is why, because X, Y, or Z. I would say that's probably less than 10% of the time. Most of the time, you go to a stucco contractor, they're going to tell you, like, that's the only thing we'll do, that's the only way we'll do it. And those are the situations that, like Tom said, that's when you get deals blown up. Our job is to get you guys a settlement when it comes to this. I mean, that is like our number one goal. We can get you a settlement, you're going to be happy, we're going to be happy. And that's kind of how this started. So he, at one point, sat down when he was getting certified to do this, and I'll let him take it over, and was in a room full of guys that do it for a living, and there was a presentation, and I'll kind of let him take it away from there.
I'm like Buddha sitting up there.
Yeah, you look like Buddha.
Pull the
Yeah,
belly.
basically the idea is, listen, I'm a businessman. I actually have a graduate degree in finance. I think of everything as business first. My whole idea when I first got involved with this was, I am tied in with Keller Williams for years and years. My daughter's mother, his little sister, her mother is the founding partner of Keller Williams in Center City, Philadelphia. So, and she originally started in the Doylestown office years ago. So I've been, realtors, unfortunately, you're all around me. Too much of my life, probably. But here's how I looked at it from the very beginning. I'm a businessman. How do I get these people to settlement? I'm not here to sell something. I'm here to get you to the settlement table. And I was constantly getting phone calls from people. We got a problem. We can't get to the settlement table. We have a stucco situation. We did an inspection. They want $90,000, $130,000, $160,000 to do this property. So the first one actually came from a RE/MAX agent named Diane Sarkisian, who's just happens to be Cher's cousin, actually. Do you know that? Cher's real name is Sarkisian. I didn't know that, but it's her cousin. So she brought me to a property in Tallamore, which is an Ambler, and she said, we got a problem. Oh, God damn.
Always one.
Yeah, it is. Guess what? Let me just take care of this. I'm just going to hang it up. If I can figure out how to hang my own phone up.
It's the red button,
Do you want to
Steve.
give it to me?
Yeah, power. I just powered off. That does it, right? Power off does it?
Great.
See what happens when you get old, you don't know this modern technology stuff. So in any case, I went out and took a look at a property, and it was just a spot under a window and one in the front and a spot in the back. They wanted $73,000 or $75,000 to do the back of the house and the front of the house and the side. And I came from a general contracting background. I build stuff. I don't rip stuff off. I took a look. I said, do you mind if I'm going to bring one of my carpenters out. And I brought a carpenter out, and instead of going from the outside, we actually went under the window in the inside of the house, and we cut the drywall out. It's a whole lot cheaper cutting drywall out than it is cutting stucco off a wall. We saw what the problem was. We made the cutouts, so we found out where the leak was in the window. We stopped the leak. We actually shot it with a power washer for about 30 minutes. No more leaks. Closed it back, fixed the wood underneath, closed it back up, then deal. The whole thing cost them $4,300. Wow. They got the settlement. We put a 5-year warranty on it, and guess what? That particular property, 4 years and almost like 11 months later, they tested it and it was still dry. So this is how I got started. And then from there, somebody else called, and then I got another phone call. Before you knew it, I was getting swamped under by real estate agents saying, can you help me out? I'm losing a deal. Can you help me out? When Sal first came with the company, he asked me, he says, is it time for me to come with the business? And I went, yes, come on, I'm taking your stucco division. Because we're GCs too. We build buildings, we do building repairs, we put extensions on buildings. I mean, we got 2 gut and rehabs going on in the city, which I hate the city of Philadelphia and don't want to work there, but I'm stuck there. This particular company now we have a pump station to build down the shore, so we do a lot of things. All righty. So we got involved, and then from there, it's where it grew. And what he was talking about is when we got certified, I sat in a room, I had those little initials behind your name, like, I don't know, the crackpot initials that says that you got certified. And I'm sitting there with 15 other guys, and they're all stucco guys, and it just happened they all had an Irish brogue, and I don't know why that was. Every one of them was from Ireland. And we went through this, and they put a PowerPoint up like this, and they showed a damaged property. And he said, what do you think about this damage here? What are we going to do to fix it? And guy raised his hand, we're going to tear everything off. Another guy, yep, we're going to rip it off. And I stood there, I went, why? And they all looked at me, and they said, what do you mean, why? I said, because why? You're talking about a spot here. The rest of the house is fine. Oh, that's nice. I didn't even see this one. Good. Nice pictures. I said, why are we ripping the rest of the house off? The only damage is over here. Well, it started a big argument. 16 guys speaking brogue to each other. I didn't know what the hell they were saying, actually. I thought it was a Lucky Charms commercial. And this went on for about a while. And finally, as we were talking, one of the guys finally said, because it's a big ticket item. And I went, at least we got somebody honest here. Truth of the matter is, you don't have to tear everything off the house. You got to fix the area that's leaking. And it's not that difficult. You find the area, you fix it, you fix the leak, you repair the area if there's any damage. That's it. These guys wanted to tear everything off, and they're saying, well, we won't give a warranty to the client unless we tear it all off. I said, well, just warranty the area fixed. You don't have to warranty a window around the back of the house. I thought this was off. Would somebody, will you shut my phone off for me, damn it? I swear to God, I said, power off.
The only way we know where the water is, where the leak is you have to do a stucco inspection, obviously. Like,
Yes.
I'm in this crazy market, I know people are waiving them a lot. But if you're doing your job, you probably,
Well, shut
even
up.
if you have to waive inspections, including stucco, you should probably still advise them to do a stucco inspection at some point, because problems that could be addressed with 4300, like a window problem, could turn into massive problems if it rots all the way through. You get mold on the inside of the house. It could turn into a nightmare, honestly. So
But
that's kind of like,
yeah, but here's our suggestion. We realized we've talked to hundreds of agents, hundreds. Like I said, this is a lunch and learn here. We've already been here,
We've
I
been
think,
here
twice, three
yeah.
times. We've been all, you name them, we probably did 50 of these things, 40 or 50 of them, all over the place, from Center City, all over. The truth of the matter is if you have a client that got a stucco house, it's my opinion that you circumvent and go and get a stucco inspection in advance of the client getting one. Because you can show right up front if there's any problems. You could say, here's where the problems, here's what we found, and we fixed it. Rather than being at the mercy of a buyer who comes in and says, we want to have a stucco, and now we want a $160,000 credit.
right, because they're going to have us quote from a stucco company that is going to inflate the quote and do a bunch of unnecessary bullshit, honestly. So like doing it ahead of time, having the stucco inspection, you can clearly see where the spots are. I mean, how many people in the room have had a stucco inspection on a house before? Right. So
Did any of you know what you were looking at, by the way, just out of curiosity?
You mean the little hole that you drill in?
Like when you got the report back, did you have an idea what the stuff meant?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay.
I did. My dad's a carpenter, so.
There you go. That makes it easier. Well, and part of the reason I bring that up is because that's part of what we're here to be is a resource. We don't expect you to be, and the client shouldn't, you're not supposed to be an expert on stucco inspections and stucco and whatnot. I actually, walking in the door today from another office, I got two. One was preemptive sale, similar situation. They want to get ahead of it. They want to understand the situation, what's going on. Because, again, for us, will we love the business? Yes. What they may do is have me come out, give them a quote, and then include that as part of their listing.
right, and offer a credit
And
for
offer
the
a credit
quote.
up front, because maybe they don't have the equity, maybe they don't have the money to do it. But at the very least, hey, we're going to get ahead of it. This is how it's going to be listed. This is our estimate to fix it. This would be fine. And by the way, we're not talking about this anymore. There are no negotiations on this. This is what it is. So like, there's multiple ways that we can help you as far as getting a settlement. Obviously, we'd love the business, but I understand that's not exactly how this works.
And it's important to note we are not stucco inspectors.
Correct.
Yes.
That is
Correct.
something totally different.
There'd be a conflict of interest. If
Yeah.
we can't go to somebody and say, oh, your stucco's terrible, and we'll give you a fee to do this. No, it's a conflict. So we have no fiduciary relationship with any stucco inspection company. We know a lot of them because we know whose reports and what the reports look like, who does good reports, who does bad ones. We see that, but we don't really. I tell you what, there's only a couple of guys I would even recognize if I was in a room with.
Correct. There's one that I would, and then the rest of them I know by name. And there's some, like I get people that ask for recommendations, and I will recommend them, and I tell them this recommendation, and it's true, is because I think the report's really easy, and or the inspector themselves doesn't scare the crap out of everybody. Which you get other inspectors out there, and they'll scare you to death. They'll tell you got to tear everything off, and really that's not their responsibility. Their responsibility is basically to create a report, do the inspection, and say you have to get somebody in here to do this. And the problem is once the inspector opens their mouth, it kind of pigeonholes us because it puts us in a position, well, the inspector said this, and I have to say, well, I don't care what the inspector said because that doesn't make sense. You don't have to do it that way. But it goes back and forth from a credibility standpoint. So there are times where we actually had to call inspectors in and we say, hey, we're going to do it this way. And they say, hey, that actually makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, go do it.
It's important to know what the stucco inspection is too. Are
Correct.
you all familiar? They drill through, stucco, which is like
quarter-inch probes.
which is like concrete, basically, and then they're testing resistance, and then they're testing moisture behind the stucco.
And they're doing it with a masonry drill bit, which if you get to OSB or plywood with a masonry drill, it's going to feel like air if you push too hard. So sometimes they'll go through, and if you've seen, I don't think there's any on this one.
Toll Brother houses?
But no. You'll see like the NR, if you've ever seen an inspection report, NR usually means no resistance. That means they never even got any kind of water reading. It was basically they pushed through, decided that the wood was rotted out. And because of that, we're not going to test for water. We know it's rotted out. Now, the problem is, can you go to the other picture, the next one? Two more.
Ooh.
No, I'm
I
sorry.
recognize some of these.
So this one again. So if you look at that window up there, the one next to it, the wood there doesn't look too bad, right? we've had situations where we've actually taken off stucco or taken underneath a window where it says no resistance, and it turns out the wood looks like that. And you can literally see the drill hole that they drilled through. And it's to a point where you look at them and you go, well, what am I supposed to do? It's not like the client doesn't have to pay for this anymore. Look, the inspectors do the best they can with what they have. That being said, part of what we do is, hey, this isn't as bad as it looks. This is more likely what we're going to find than a completely rotted out, molded out wall inside a house. Because I know that's the fear in this whole situation. Half of what we do is therapy, to tell you the truth. Therapy for you guys and therapy for the clients, where somebody calls us and is panicked. I mean, I've had multiple conversations with clients that are in tears, and I'm trying not to giggle when they're crying, but because I know it's not that big of a deal. And I have to explain to them, listen, we've seen this before. This is what we're probably going to find. This is the only price. And then they realize, wow. And then you take it off and you show them, hey, this is what you're looking at. And they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like this is all that it is.
All right, forget about all the technical stuff and sticking wood through it. Here's what we do basically. We try to get you to get involved with the deal that makes sense financially, that if the cost isn't ridiculous, that either the buyer or the seller walks away from a deal.
Correct.
Because our whole idea is you got to make a deal. If you don't get to the settlement table, you're not making money. We're certainly not going to make any money.
Correct.
So the idea is, how do we get you to the settlement table for the most reasonable price to do it? And we're putting our ass on the line. So we have a 5-year warranty out there. So it's got to be right. So we're not going to cheat. It's got to be right. But it's how do we get you to the settlement table without blowing up a deal? Because you don't need a seller who's selling a house and has 100,000 equity in it, and now they're just told they got to pay 70,000 of it. They'll say, "Screw this, I'll stay here." All right, we want to make it so we got to look at it so how we can get you to make the deal. That's the purpose of this. So all this technical stuff about what stucco is, all wonderful stuff. It doesn't say, it could be Mickey Mouse pictures on the walls. We don't care. We're trying to get you. And what we're telling you is it's overblown. It's like the asbestos scare from years ago. Everybody's dying of asbestos. It used to be you had to double, triple bag it, throw it in water, do all this. Some guys would come in with moon suits on. They don't do that anymore. Now, you know what you do? You wet it, you put it in a trash bag. That's what you do. All of a sudden, it's not as dangerous as it was 30 years ago. Don't ask me why, you know. And this is what this is. This stucco scare. There's mold's jumping out of the windows. It's going to kill you. No, it doesn't.
And guys, talking to your buyers too. There's value in this, right? If you have a company, a common sense company that can look at the report, and rather than calling a stucco company when you do have an issue with a buyer and a bad stucco report, give us a call. We will give I promise you, almost always this quote is going to be way lower. I mean,
But
based on what
we'll
I've
help
seen.
you get there. We'll tell you what you got to look for, what it is, and this is what it's probably going to be. So get everybody on a sedative. It's going to be fine. They can sell their property. It's going to work. And you're going to get a settlement, and you're going to get a check. You got to worry more about the new commission deal they have than us. I mean, but you can get to the settlement table, and that's what we're here to get you to the settlement table. It's
Want
plain and
to
simple.
Talk it all about the partial remediations.
So yeah, this actually worked out. We don't necessarily recommend patching stucco, although there have been times where we've been asked to do it. This is different. This is a different situation. So this house was actually done pretty well. They have what's called, you might not be able to see it, but the straight line that looks like a line, it is because that's called an expansion joint. Expansion joint is by code now. You have to do it for new stucco. Basically in our area, because of the temperature, like the fact that it was 70 degrees earlier in the week and now it's 40, you get expansion and contraction. So if you have too large of a wall and span of stucco, it will crack. And you see that in inspections. Everybody's like, oh, there's a crack in it. Usually it's a surface level crack. It's not that big of a deal. These are put there specifically to prevent that. But when you have an expansion joint, or if you don't, and we have to do half a wall, we can put an expansion joint in and do it this way. That prevents you from having to do this entire wall. There were 3 walls on this house. It basically took this house from being close to a $40,000 to $50,000 job to 21, I think is what it cost. And we did work for the buyer. The buyer was really happy. That's actually him in the picture right there. He was really happy. He wasn't from here. He was from California. He didn't understand the situation. So we kind of talked him through it both during the buying process, explained to him. Because the inspector brought up a lot of things that I explained to him. And for those of you that have seen an inspection report, I'll tell you now, if the house is older than 5 or 10 years old, you're going to fail the code and the observation part of the inspection report, because you're not going to have expansion joints on every single house. You're not going to have kick out flashing. You're not going to have certain things that they require now because once upon a time they might have been best practices. I tell people, look, in reality, that doesn't necessarily matter unless they find water. We're paying attention to the water intrusion part. So if you get an inspection report that says, hey, you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this, and like by code you need it, and then they do the water intrusion part and the whole thing's dry, you don't have to do anything. It's grandfathered. You shouldn't do anything. It means that the system, the way they built it at the time, is working.
But what?
Otherwise,
But
you'd
what
have to
would a
tear every-
stucco? What would a stucco company say?
They would tell you you have to redo it. They would
Everything.
tell you you have to redo it. And if that was the case, then all the homes, the thousands of homes in the area from here down to Chester County, every single stucco home would have to be rebuilt every 7 to 12 years when they change code. I mean, realistically.
Now, isn't there a time, like the previous pictures, it looked like those homes were built, say, in the early 2000s?
Yeah.
Okay, right? I mean, I'm kind of guesstimating.
I don't know.
The one with that one. So is there a time before that where stucco was put on a certain way where it's not as much of a concern? Because wasn't there an era where the flashing wasn't being installed right, that caused a lot of the problems?
I'll tell you what the era was. Track builders.
Right, right.
Anytime you saw
Right.
major development.
Before
They were blowing
2008.
through the
Before
house.
2008. From
2005 was a hot spot.
yeah, if you want to go like probably look from 1998 to 2008.
Yeah.
The track builders were building like crazy. They were cheap as hell. They wanted to make all the money they could. They cut corners.
Right.
They didn't care. The stucco guys didn't care because they got paid when the stucco was on.
Now,
Whether they put it on right, they didn't care.
correct. Is that a selling point for you guys? Yeah. We've done work on houses that were done in the 70s though. Like it's
Yeah.
not where it's, hey, if it's before this period of time, you don't have to worry about it. They'll tell you it's probably better built. Most of the homes at that point were custom or someone was built. It's the track builders, like you said. They were blowing through houses and you don't have anybody with supervision on site. And the gutter guy gets there before the stucco guy. The gutter goes on, they stucco around the gutter, and then it just pours into that. You know what I mean? And there's no one there to see it because visually it's like, hey, this looks fine.
So we should kind of know that, Tom. Like,
Anytime you want.
that H home would be like, well, you might want to.
Oh yeah, I definitely know that.
Listen, nowadays,
I definitely let
anytime
people
there's
know.
stucco on a house, you got to check.
Yeah, you have to. I mean,
You
Anytime
have to
there's
have it
new stucco.
inspected. It doesn't matter when. You
And-
should have it inspected.
I hate to say this too, like even now, development in the city right now, the developers in the city, I mean, we get more problems. I get probably 10 calls a year just out of Fishtown.
Well, we just fixed North Dover Street last weekend.
That's what I'm saying. Like any of these up and coming
Streamline,
areas
baby.
in the city, it's like they don't care and it looks great. The next thing you know, the place is leaking in 2 years, the windows are rotted out and we have to go do it again.
Yeah.
Understand something. The way this works is water gets behind stucco. It's masonry. It's not masonry's product is not waterproof. If you drip on a brick, set a brick down and you drip, eventually the water's going to go through the brick. Masonry absorbs water. The trick is water goes behind the stucco and then it's got to get out. If not, that's how it rots. It just sits behind there. And years ago, they didn't put weep screens. They didn't put stuff to let the water out.
And you're trying to divert high velocity water, stuff that's, at the end of the day, you'd have to have a massive and long driving range into the side of the house for it to really penetrate the stucco. It's more around the penetrations and where there's seams, like windows. That's usually where they check. You almost never see them check on just a flat wall with no penetration.
Yeah, Tom, where's the inspection thing? If you see the inspection thing, you'll see where all the little red numbers are and green numbers. If
Yeah.
you notice, it's all around the windows.
Yeah, they don't.
They check the bottom of the windows because the penetrations is where water normally comes in at.
It's like skylights in a roof. You cut a hole in a roof, you're gonna have. That's where the leak's probably
Correct.
gonna come from.
It reminds me.
Well, and that's another reason why a lot of the times people ask, well, what if you patch this or what if you do this? My stance usually is I'd rather go over it. We have different ways we can seal it. There's a paint, then start to make holes in the stucco, like in an area that maybe is, hey, this isn't that big of a deal. This isn't that bad. Well, instead of cutting around a window, which we've seen some companies do, they'll literally cut around the window
Yeah.
and then put new stucco on. Well, you're just adding new seams. And if you don't seal that seam right, you're going to have the same damn problem that you had before. So for us, I mean, look, every inspection is different. The best that we can do and the best we usually do for realtors is we're going to be honest, both with your clients. On the buyer side, you're right. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversation with a buyer who's like, if this was your house, would you buy it? And I would say, I maybe had one conversation where I was like, well, I need to understand the situation more. Like, you have problems here. That doesn't necessarily mean the house is falling down.
And I
But
would
if you're not
buyers.
prepared to spend 60 grand because, by the way, all 4 walls are bad or whatever it is, then no, I wouldn't. If this is your forever home and you have the money, then yeah, it's not like the house is falling down. It's fine. Because then we'll get calls. I mean, how many calls have you got? I've gotten calls where it's like, we had somebody else come out and tell us like in 3 years the house is going to collapse. I'm like, that's funny because the house was built in 1990. What makes them know that in 3 years the house is on its way out? And they scare the heck out of people. And it's like, no, that's not how this works.
Listen, the whole idea for this is we want you to not be afraid to sell a stucco house.
Correct.
Yeah.
We want you not to be afraid to talk to a client about buying a stucco house or a client about selling a stucco house. The fear is unfounded most of the time. It really is. It's unfounded. It's just bull crap.
Yep.
There's
But-
a lot of agents and buyers that just won't look at stucco house.
Yeah.
The one conversation I remember having with Tom after we did this and we met him the first time is I remember him being like, dude, I'm kind of pumped. I'm going to go after him. Like if no one else wants him, like I'll take him because now I know there's solutions and ways to handle this where it's like, why not? Like I'll let everybody else say I don't want him and I'll just handle it.
Yeah, so think about that.
Yeah.
Plus, when there's a special paint. So stucco, if your client doesn't like the color of a stucco, you can paint it
Yeah.
just like you can paint
We-
wood.
Like rubber.
It's a special
It's
It's
a
an
paint.
ela-
rubberized,
it's an-
breathable sealant.
It's an elastomeric paint, and you can paint it any color. And we literally have fixed walls on houses. We may say, this house, we might take this section off here and do it. And we paint it to match. And they go, that looks better than anywhere else on the house.
Yeah.
So they want us to paint the whole friggin' house.
Yeah.
It's like, and we've had that a lot of times where we end up waterproofing the whole house because they like the color or how it matches better.
We've also had houses listed where they get an inspection report and I'm like, you don't have to do anything. And we're like, we're worried. I'm like, look, then let's paint it. And we end up sealing the whole house and painting it. And it's like, I tell them like, you didn't have to spend that money, but if that's what you want to do, go for it.
Is that something like maintenance wise that is the reason why I ask this is I own a townhome with stucco, like past the, and it's probably good for everybody to know for clients, but like past the stucco inspection, everything was dry, but then you're gonna own the home for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like mine is certain spots it's like starting to get dirty, right? So we're thinking about like, oh, have a power wash.
Yep.
It's worse having a power wash. It's better off getting it painted and
Caulk it and
fixing
paint
where the water is making it dirty.
Yeah.
Most of the time when you see those black marks running down, it's not wet behind them.
It's just surface
It's
water.
just surface water that comes down like off the roof and the shingles. You know, it's
Yeah.
asphalt shingles, and it just makes it look like it's crud.
Yeah.
There are companies out there that specialize in stucco cleaning. We're not one of them. If you want to go that route, call them. Don't just have somebody come power wash your stucco because they will blow the stucco off the
Yeah,
wall.
we've seen people blow stucco right off a wall, 3,600
You
psi.
have to soft wash it, and there's
Yeah.
certain chemicals that they use too that are specific to stucco because there's so much pointing in it, and it's very difficult to clean. The nice part about the paint is if you do it, they don't market it this way, but it's pretty much stain resistant. Like those stains don't come back. So not only do you cover it up, and we do very, very light washing when we're going to paint an area. If it's dirty like that, because I can't, especially if it's stuff that's brittle, I got to take it off the wall. Otherwise, you paint it and it's just going to fall off. But I don't offer it and I don't recommend it. I mean, you really got to get the right person. As far as what I think your question, where it was headed, that to me is a peace of mind move. If you want to do it, I recommend it. It's a great product. It's something that if you do it and then you want to list it 5 years later or whatever, it's like, hey, we did this too, by the way. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about this situation. But for me to tell you like that should be general part of maintenance of stucco, probably not. That's not really fair.
Yeah, we just did a house downtown. The kids, a young couple, they were like, listen, we plan on being here 10 or 15 years. And the side of the house was stucco. They actually tore a house down next to it. If you know city houses, they tore a row house down next to it. City comes out and they stucco the whole wall. They were concerned they had some water leaks. We took care of the leaks. They said, what would you, they said, we want to be here 10 or 15 years. I said, this elastomeric paint it. We'll paint it for you. I
And-
sent the
and
guys out there. We
caulk, and
sprayed it.
caulk. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Oh, you
caulk
caulk
it,
it. You
seal. I
seal
mean,
everything up. You flash it and you paint it.
You'd be surprised, and I'm sorry, you'd be surprised how many houses have issues because general maintenance things aren't completed. Whether it was because it wasn't communicated to the client when they purchased the house, when the house was built for them. So if you do have a stucco home, they say 5. Realistically, with the products they have, you can start checking after 5. But every 10 years, you got to caulk all the windows and the seams. Like that's period. Like that's non-negotiable. I can't tell you how many houses we walk up to and it's like, yeah, duh, man. Like you don't have caulk anywhere. And if you would have paid somebody $1,500, $200, or $2,000 to just do this every 10 years and just make sure it's all caulked, would have saved you $60,000 a day. You know what I mean? But they don't know any better. So like that's one of the things we also explain to people from like either realtors or clients, like, hey, you're gonna have to do this, expect to do this.
With stucco.
With stucco, yes. The other thing I'll say, and then
Even siding too, right? I mean,
there's certain siding correct. And
If it's
I'm
not
glad you
installed,
brought that
if it's not installed correctly,
Hardy?
siding is worse
Yeah.
than stucco.
well, I was actually going to go there. So one of the big misconceptions is everybody's like, well, let's do Hardy because Hardy's the best. Hardy's a great product. Hardy's a really nice product. Hardy has almost a similar situation of stucco, they just haven't tested yet. And that there's so much user error that's involved in Hardy that if you don't install it right, you could actually have the same problems, and it's more expensive. There are certain neighborhoods and areas where Hardy's probably the way to go. They make so many options right now, vinyl, and at such a less cost. And the way that vinyl is manufactured is it's basically waterproof. It all clicks together. It overlaps on purpose. There isn't really as much user error. The user error is more in the cosmetic of it than it is like it has to be hung. You can't nail it in too tight. Stuff like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that water's going to get in there. Versus Hardy. Hardy can be a mess. We do Hardy too, but that's always in situations like this. I almost never leave with that. It's just an expensive alternative.
When people hear vinyl, a lot of times they think of those long parallel planks. There's all kinds of different vinyl products.
I mean, actually, can you?
Yeah, but listen, we do we do any kind of exception. As a company, we do stones. We do.
All right, so I don't know how well you.
We just did this.
This is all vinyl. That's board and batten and.
No, they can't.
I don't know if you. Can
That's
see that,
stone.
That's
the
stone.
side is the
On
vinyl.
the side, this all here,
That's all vinyl.
all the trim and everything, that's all vinyl siding. And you walked up to it, you'd think this is Hardy shingle and Hardy board and batten. You can't tell because the products are so good these days.
And they also have vinyl that looks like cedar, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they have
what the top
all
one
kinds of stuff.
Oh, up here.
Did you?
You basically hit on it. I was just gonna ask about maintenance, and then you went into it. Do you guys offer like
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
service to go out and maintain somebody's stucco?
It's a
Go around all the windows, hit them all with caulk.
it's a one-off. I don't know if that's where you're getting. It's not like a subscription thing where it's like, hey, we'll
No,
be
I
out here every.
understand.
But yeah, we.
Like if they wanted you guys to come out there, because
Yes.
you guys know stucco, you would be the right one to do instead of a handyman not knowing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do not get a handyman.
I have it.
That's
Never
Yeah,
get a
no.
handyman.
No, it depends.
You want to change the S trap or the P trap? Get a handyman.
That's my point.
You want to do exterior of the house? Don't get a
I
handyman.
mean, we do a ton of those a year too, where I get an inspection report and there's like, hey, the inspection report's great, but it calls out that there's no caulk joints
And if
and
he wanted to just say preemptively,
Oh, yeah.
I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, we do
You
that for
guys come
people.
out and Just
Yeah.
go
Of course.
over everything and.
I mean, I usually suggest that depending on what the inspection says or not. And I'm like, hey, if you want to do this at least somebody, whenever they get it inspected, if you're expecting it to get inspected, now they'll see this versus before if you have they're going to call that out. And then is it your responsibility? I don't know. That's the negotiation part of it. But if you want to remove that question at all,
A lot of people
yes.
make it as a selling point for their house when they're selling their house. They actually
like, hey,
will ask us to come out and say, check all the flashing, check all this, because the normal inspection, home inspector, a lot of time will catch the flashing stuff. It doesn't have to be in stucco inspection.
And the other thing too, which goes to that, and it has more to do with us as a company, like we're not going anywhere. So if you have
Oh yeah, I've been here a
you
long
have somebody
time.
who's going to list their house and they do this, and let's say they do work now and you're going to list it in the spring, and buyer comes up and they want to understand what we did, whatever it is, call us. We don't expect you guys to be the expert. We'll explain what we did, explain what's included in the warranty, why we did it this way, go over the stucco inspection. I've done that countless times.
See, that's the other thing too. The company's been around since 1987, and I got a younger version of me, so he's going to be around for the next 30 years.
I actually know how to put my phone on mute. So.
I am not going to be around for 30 years. I'm going to be someplace under a palm tree on a beach and have Tom and Sal calling me because they don't know what the frig they're doing.